I Have a Dream by Martin Luther King Jr. The dream of liberty and equality of the Negro is deeply rooted in the American dream. What is the meaning of the word emancipation? Freedom. Who signed the Emancipation Proclamation? Abraham Lincoln. Who wrote I Have a Dream? Martin Luther King Jr. Who signed the Emancipation Proclamation? Abraham Lincoln. What year was the Emancipation Proclamation signed? 1863. What did the Emancipation Proclamation declare? All persons held as slaves in rebellious states are free. How many years after the Emancipation Proclamation was the speech delivered? 100 years. What term describes the injustices faced by the Negro slaves? Withering injustice. What did the Emancipation Proclamation serve as for millions of slaves? A beacon light of hope. What were Negroes still facing a century later? Segregation and discrimination. Which battle influenced Lincoln's decision? Which battle influenced Lincoln's decision to issue the proclamation? Battle of Battletam. What was the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation issued on? September 22, 1862. How many states were in rebellion? 10 states. Did the emancipation free all slaves in the United States? No, it only applied to rebellious states. What military action was tied to the effectiveness of the proclamation? Union military victory. How many black soldiers fought for the Union by the end of the Civil War? Almost 20,000. What was January 1 known as Heartbreak Day? Where is the original document of the Emancipation Proclamation? National Archives. What was one of Lincoln's motivation? Military necessity. Which states were exempt from the Emancipation Proclamation? Loyal border states. What significant change did Lincoln's proclamation bring to the Civil War? It transformed it into a war of freedom. How did Lincoln describe his vow related to General Lee's defeat? A solemn vow with God. What did Lincoln's cabinet debate before issuing the preliminary proclamation? The timing and necessity of freeing slaves. What does beacon light of hope symbolize? A guiding light or source of inspiration for freedom. What does the phrase joyous daybreak refer? The beginning of freedom for enslaved people. What does the long night of their captivity symbolize? The prolonged period of slavery and oppression. What does manacles of segregation refer to? The legal and social barriers that separated races. What does chains of discrimination imply in this context? Systematic unfair treatment based on race. Who is referred to as a great American? Abraham Lincoln. What historical event is being commemorated? The signing of the Emancipation Proclamation. What metaphor does King use to describe the situation of African Americans? A lonely island of poverty. How long after the Emancipation Proclamation does King claim African Americans still suffer? 100 years. What document? How long after the Emancipation Proclamation does King claim African Americans still suffer? 100 years. What document does King refer as promissory note? The Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. What concept does King emphasize as essential? Dignity and discipline. According to King, what must not define their protest? Physical violence. What does King say about the relationship between black and white people? Their destinies are tied together. What does King identify as a reason for dissatisfaction among African Americans? Police brutality and segregation. What dream does King express regarding his children? To be judged by their character and not skin color. Where does King envision former slaves and slave owners? At the table of brotherhood. In which state does King hope to see transformation into freedom and justice? Mississippi. What phrase does King repeat to emphasize his vision for equality? I have a dream. Where does King call for freedom to ring from? From every mountainside in America. What spiritual song does King refer at the end of his speech? Free at last, free at last. What is the significance of the phrase I have a dream? It unifies his vision for justice and equality. How does King describe the current state of African American society? As victims of unspeakable horrors. What does King mean by the chains of discrimination, the systematic barriers preventing African Americans from achieving equality? What action does King urge his listeners to take after the march, to return home and continue fighting for civil rights? How does King characterize the struggles faced by African Americans as long and difficult, marked by suffering and injustice? What overarching themes runs through King's speech? The pursuit of justice and equality for all races. How did King's speech impact the civil rights movement? It became a defining moment and helped secure legislative changes like the Civil Rights Act. In which state does King mention that children will be able to join hands as sisters and brothers? Alabama. What does King hope will happen in Mississippi regarding voting rights? That the Negro will be able to vote. What phrase does King use to describe the current condition faced by African Americans? Unspeakable horrors. How does King describe the heat of injustice in Mississippi as sweltering? What is the significance of the phrase "let freedom ring" in King's speech? It symbolizes the call for equality and justice across America. Which two groups does King mention will join hands in his dream? Little black boys and little white girls. What does King mean by cash a check to claim the rights proposed by the Constitution? Which phrase signifies hope and freedom? Free at last, great God Almighty, we are free at last. What is one specific form of discrimination? Signing states for whites only. Sign stating for whites only.